moderator for the meeting, and I'll control the flow. I will introduce each of the action, discussion, and information items prior to the board's discussion and voting. And then just a quick reminder, too, that I ask everyone to speak loudly and clearly throughout the meeting. And if you are not speaking, please keep your mics muted so that we don't have any background noises and that type of thing for the recording itself. So we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, before we do the call to order and the roll call or the election of officers, I would like to do a roll call to make sure that we do have a quorum of members present for this meeting so that we can conduct business. I'm going to ask each of the board members present on the call to state their name and indicate that you are present for the meeting. So if I could start with John Bruno. Are you on the call, John?
John Bruno on the call.
We'll go to Bud Pites.
Bud Pites on the call.
Tom Berletic.
Thomas Berletic on the call.
Okay. Major Bivens.
George Bivens on the call.
Okay. Is there any other board members that I didn't recognize that are on the call?
Craig Westover.
Oh, I'm sorry, Craig. Thank you for that. So we do, we have established that we do have a quorum of board members to conduct the meeting as usual. I will go through the PCCD staff that are on the call. I have myself, John Fowl, the manager of the Bureau of Training Services, Tracy Beaver, Constable's Education and Training staff as well, Nicholas Hartman, who is also Constable's Education and Training staff, Yvonne Murray, who is our fiscal person at PCCD, along with Elizabeth Romero, are both present on the call. Also, Mike Pennington, the executive director of PCCD, is on the call. We also have Deborah Sandiford, who is the chief counsel for PCCD, on the call. And also Megan Staub, who is our curriculum manager at PCCD, is also on the call. Are there any other PCCD staff members that I did not recognize as being on the call?
Good morning, Sherry. This is Sally Barry, Office of Justice Programs.
Hi, Sally. Sorry about that. I did see you down at the bottom of the list then. So we do have Sally Barry present as well. Okay, at this time I'm going to ask, we will wait for any public voice we will do at the end of the meeting. I will ask if you have not contacted Tracy Beaver in advance of the meeting to advise that you would like to address the board. I will ask for you during public voice to state your name and the county in which you are from prior to the public voice. We will be doing a public voice session after each of the action items as well. So if you do have, I will ask if there's any public voice after each of the action items. You will be given 2 minutes to speak, but I will ask that you state your name and your county. And then again, at the end of the board meeting, we will have a public voice session that is open to everyone. And again, I will ask you that you state your name and the county and to keep your comments to 2 minutes or less on the call. Okay, so we're going to go ahead with the call to order and the election of officers. Unfortunately, we were unable to do this at any of the earlier meetings this year due to not having quorum, that type of thing. So I would ask if there are any nominations for the position of board chair.
Thomas Berletic, I nominate John Bruno as chairman.
Do I have a second from a board member on this motion?
Bud Pites, I second it.
And all in favor, please.
Berletic, aye.
Bivens, aye.
Pites, aye. Pites, aye.
Westover, aye.
Okay, John Bruno has been nominated as the chair of the Constables Board. Could I get a nomination for the vice chair position, please? Any nominations for vice chair?
Berletic, I nominate Bud Pites as vice chair.
Could I get a second on that nomination, please?
Craig Westover, aye. Second that motion.
And if I could just have a roll call vote then again amongst the board members of this approval of this motion then.
Bruletta, aye.
Bruno, aye.
Bivens,
Price,
aye.
Westover, aye.
Thank you. So going forward, we will have Constable John Bruno as the chair of the Constables Education and Training Board and Francis Bud Pites as the vice chair of the board. Okay, we'll go ahead and move forward to our action items for today. The first action item, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the action item, and then I'll ask that a board member who is making the motion to approve, and then the second of that motion to approve, that they state their name for the record before each motion. So the first action item going before the board will be the unapproved draft minutes of the August 13th, 2020 meeting. Is there any discussion amongst the board members or PCCD staff? Hearing none, I'm going to then ask if there is any public comment on the unapproved draft minutes of the August 13th, 2020 meeting. And again, if I would ask that you state your name and your county prior to speaking and limit the comments to 2 minutes or less. Is there any public voice on this action item? Okay, hearing none, then I would ask for a motion to approve the August 13th, 2020 meeting minutes.
I'll make that motion,
make that
John
motion.
Bruno, to approve the meeting minutes of August 13th.
And this is,
Bud Price, I'll second that. Bud Price.
okay, I'm sorry, who made the motion?
That's John
Bruno
Bruno.
made the
Can you hear
motion.
me? John Bruno?
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Bruletta, aye.
Bud Price, aye.
Westover, aye.
Bruletta, aye.
Any nays? Are there any abstentions from this vote, from this motion? Okay, hearing none, motion approved. This is the same process that we will repeat for each action item then. So moving forth to the unapproved fiscal report for November 19th, I will turn it over to Yvonne Murray for her report on this fiscal statement. Yvonne? Are you there, Yvonne? Beth, are you on the call? Could you make the report?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I was just going to chime in that Yvonne had emailed that she was kind of cutting in and out. If we could, is there anything else you can do, and I can get her to send that to me? Send the, the information to me, and I'll present it momentarily.
Sure. Sure. While we're waiting on that, then I'm just going to go ahead and move to the next action item, if that's okay, and we'll come back to you then, Beth.
Yep. I'm just reaching out to her, and maybe she can hear us, but I reached out to ask her to send it to me.
Okay. I can see that she is on the call, but I can't. I mean, she's not muted or anything. So, but yeah, we'll come back to you. Okay. The next action item on the agenda is the 2021 board meeting schedule. Is there any discussion?
What page is that on, Chair?
That is on page 12 of the board packet.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion amongst the board members?
Yeah, Westover, I have a question.
Sure.
So is this, as I take it, we're going totally remote then next year?
Yes, at this point in time, staff were just advised that we will be teleworking through June 30th of 2021. However, we will be changing from the Skype platform to the Teams platform for the meetings for next year. So that will just be, you'll just log in a different way to the board meetings. But at this point in time, yes, at least through the May meeting, staff will be teleworking and they will be remote board meetings.
I see where it said Harrisburg/team, with the italics, so that's why I wondered if that's what we were doing. So, okay, not a problem. I have no problem with the schedule, and I can give you a motion to approve when you're ready.
Okay, sounds good. If there are no other discussion amongst the board members, I'm going to ask if there is any public comment on the 2021 board meeting schedule. And again, if you do have comment, if you could state your name and county and keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. Okay, hearing none, we will go ahead and ask.
Quinn, this is Constable Quinn.
Yes, Quinn.
From
yes.
Center County.
Yep.
When you do the new format or the new platform stuff, you will email that out to everybody that you have email addresses on sets?
Yes, sir. And we will also publish it on the public-facing constable section of the PCCD website as well.
Thank you.
Yep. Hearing
Greg
no other.
Smith, Franklin County.
Okay, go ahead.
Also asking, will we be able to get the link to do that on the computer and see video, or just call in?
Yeah, it's just going to be call-in. We do not have video capabilities on our laptops. There's no cameras, so we won't have video. Any other public comment? Okay, then I would ask for a motion to approve the 2021 board meeting schedule.
Berletic, I make that
John
motion.
Bruno makes,
Okay.
I'll make that second. John Bruno second.
Okay, motion made by Tom Berletic, seconded by John Bruno. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Pites.
Aye.
Westover,
John
aye.
Bruno, aye. John
Bivens,
Bruno,
aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. We will go ahead and move to the next action item, which will be an instructor certification for Temple University. It's on page 13. I'll just go ahead and present this. The potential instructor candidate, his name is Bruce Nesbitt. He is a police sergeant with the Springfield Township Police Department. He has 28 years of law enforcement experience and 26 years of instructional experience. He currently instructs at the Montgomery County Community College Municipal Police Academy. He is a PSP Municipal Police Firearms Instructor, a MOPEC Firearms Instructor, a FATS, F-A-T-S Firearms Training System, and the Dynamic Handgun certifications he also possesses. The staff are requesting topic certification for Mr. Nesbitt in general and firearms topics, and we are recommending that the board certify Mr. Nesbitt to be a board certified instructor for Temple University. Is there any discussion amongst the board members? Hearing none, I am going to ask if there's any public comment on this action item for the certification of Bruce Nesbitt for Temple University. Is there any public voice? Hearing none, then I'm going to ask for a vote to approve this instructor for certification. Could I get a motion, please?
Berletic, I make that motion.
John Bruno second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Bivens, aye.
Pites,
Berletic,
aye.
aye.
Bruno, aye.
Westover, aye.
Any nays or abstentions from this vote? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Okay, now we're going to go back to the fiscal report for the November 19th, 2020 meeting. Beth, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead then.
Good morning. This is the fiscal report for the
I'm sorry,
first
that is
quarter.
found on page, what page is that found on?
That is on page 7 of the packet.
And it's pages 7 to 11. And under receipts, the balance carried forward from the previous fiscal year was $2,161,076.15. The fees collected through the first quarter were $216,188.31, making the total funds available as of September 30th, 2020, $2,377,264.46. Under expenditures and commitments, the total cumulative expenditures as of September 30th, 2020 were $179,413.05. The total cumulative expenditures and commitments as of September 30th, 2020 were $1,574,570.26, and that includes $195,545.65 in administrative expenditures and commitments. And the breakdown of those costs is on page 9. Total uncommitted funds as of September 30th, 2020 is $802,694.20.
Is there any discussion or questions from the board? Hearing none, I will ask if there's any public comment on the fiscal report of November 19th. Hearing none, then I will ask for a motion to approve.
Pikes, I make that motion.
And that's
Berletic,
Bud
I
Pikes.
second. Berletic, second.
Thank you, Judge. All in favor, please say aye.
Berletic, aye.
John Bruno, aye.
Pikes, aye.
Westover, aye.
Bruno, aye.
Bivens, aye.
Any nays or abstentions from this motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. We will go forth to page 14 of the board packet to the Act 233 stipend payments for training year 2020. And this is our normal, we do this every year for the Act 233 stipend payments. Would the board like me to read through this? I could just give the synopsis otherwise.
Just synopsize it.
Excuse me?
Just go ahead and synopsize it.
Okay. Basically, what we do is in the Act 233 payments are under Title 44, and if there is a fund surplus, the commission can allocate any of these surplus funds in the constable's account, education and training account, to assist constables and deputy constables with the costs associated with attending the continuing education training. We have not done a stipend payment since 2008. And at this point in time, we are asking that, again, due to the stability and the health of the Constable's Education and Training Act funds, we are requesting that the stipend payment, that no payments be made under Title 44, Section 7149F to constables and deputy constables for the training year 2020. And again, this would be until sufficient funds are available to allocate these surplus funds to a stipend payment. Is there any discussion amongst the board members or PCCD staff?
Yes, Sherry Berletic, I have a question. Do we have any idea what the stipend payment would amount to?
We do not. And actually, honestly, Judge, because we did not have any class, we only had 310 individuals who attended the classroom portion this year. So they would be the only ones that would be eligible if the board did decide to make a stipend payment. Normally, in the past when we did it in 2006, 2007, and 2008, it was around $120 that the constables would have received. And that was for mileage and any tolls, that type of thing. That's what the stipend would have covered.
Okay, well, I'm just curious as to what the total would be if we're being asked to vote on something and we don't have all the information here. Is there any way
Judge,
we can table it? Yes.
This is Doug Powell. I can tell you the 3 years we did, when it was calculated, if every constable who was eligible had submitted their, I can't remember, W-9 or whatever the form was,
Yes,
and we had made payment, it would have been up in the $225,000 range if everybody who was eligible. And those were regular training years, roughly 1,100 constables. But not everybody filed their forms, etc. I think the average payments were much less than that we actually paid out. I want to say they were in the 125,000 range.
And John, the average, go ahead.
I believe given the situation we find ourselves in, we all went to bed somewhere around March 12th or 13th, and when we woke up, we found ourselves in the twilight zone. So given that, I would like to have an idea of what it would cost us to do this. And if it's not exorbitant, I think what I'm trying to say is, can we table this until we can get a closer idea of what, in today's dollars, because we're 12 years out of paying these constables for this training, I'd just like to have an idea of what it would cost before I cast a vote.
And Judge, we can get you a cost, but as Sherry said, you know, it was only roughly 300 guys who attended the in-person, and how we calculated it was based on the state travel regulations, and that's what we were paying for, essentially, you know, travel costs, et cetera. So completion of the online training, I can't see any reason to pay a stipend for somebody who just did 4 hours online. So we can get some information and provide it back to the board.
Could you do that, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So can we table this until next meeting, or?
Sure. We'll table it, Judge.
That'd be proper. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we will get back to the board with a cost estimate for travel for the 310 individuals that attended the classroom subjects for this year, and we'll present that back to the board at the February 11th, 2021 meeting then.
Very good, Sherry. Do I need to make a motion on that?
I don't think so. If it's being tabled, I don't think that we need to make a motion to table. Deborah, do you have an opinion on that? Should we make a motion to table that?
No, I think you're fine. You're just gonna withdraw it from the agenda.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, I will go ahead and move forward to the last action item that we have for this meeting. And I will go into a little bit more detail on this one so that everyone online is aware of what is going on with this. Program staff were contacted recently by Constable Thomas Marson from Allegheny County regarding his expired firearms certification and also the cancellation of the annual firearms qualification courses for 2020. Constable Marson's firearms certification expired on December 31st of 2017, and he was enrolled into SW03 AF20, which is an annual firearms qualification course, which was canceled due to the COVID pandemic. He needed to successfully complete this class in order to avoid a lapse of 3 or more years in his firearms certification. Per board regulation, if there is a lapse of 3 years or more in a constable's firearms certification, we do require that they go back and successfully complete the basic firearms qualification course. However, due to no fault of his own, Constable Marson was not able to successfully complete the required annual firearms qualification course to reactivate his firearms qualification prior to this 3-year lapse. Constable Marson has attended both annual and advanced firearms classes in the past and has a very good training and attendance record with the program. Program staff are recommending that the board approve an exception to the above board regulation to allow Constable Thomas Marson the opportunity to enroll and attend an annual firearms qualification course in 2021. However, if a failure would occur during this 2021 annual firearms qualification course, we would require that Constable Marson bear the financial responsibility for the cost of which would be $115. That's an error in the board packet. That cost is $115, not $155. So I apologize for that error. To attend an additional firearms qualification course. Should a double failure occur of the 2021 annual firearms qualification courses, We would then require that Constable Martian would have to go back to the basic firearms training course in 2022. That, of course, per board policy, we do require that constables are responsible for the cost of the basic firearms course, which is $1,485. Program staff are requesting the board's approval to allow this firearms exception of the above board regulation for Constable Thomas Martian. Is there any discussion amongst the board or questions? Any questions or comments from PCCD staff? Hearing none, I will ask if there is any public comment on this action item. Again, if you could state your name and county prior to speaking.
Blair Cole, Mercer County. I'd like to know if it could be a blanket, if there's any other constables into that policy would also be waived for circumstances.
Yes, thank you, sir, for bringing that up. We did look into this. Thomas Martian was the only constable that fell into this category. We did have several other. If someone could mute their mic, I'm hearing a lot of background noise. There were 3 other constables that were in a similar situation. However, they had failures from the previous classes, so they would be required to pay to go to another annual qualification. We have not received payment from them, and based upon the failures, their lapse was over the 3 years with the failures that they had on their records. So they didn't fall into the same category as Thomas Martian, but we did look at anyone that was in that similar situation. Any other questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, I'm going to ask the board. Go ahead, Gary.
Sherry, this is Gary Winfrey, York County. I was going to come in for public comments at the end, but since you brought this up about this constable and Martian, I'm not understanding how come I'm not being used as an example as to what he's going through with the firearms training. My situation is exactly the same.
Let me just pull up I would like to address this now while we have you on the phone. And I apologize because I don't have all of this in at my fingertips right now.
Yeah, I was the one that filed the grievance. It was about the same thing that I needed to take the training in 2017. Exact same scenario.
But I think what the issue was, yes, it would be a similar situation. However, you were not enrolled into a class this year, into an annual firearms class this year. So it's not the same situation. Your base certification expired. So you had to reactivate your base certification by completing the 4-hour Canvas online course. So your base certification did not come back into play until September 11th is when September 29th is when we would have approved that online grade. And at that point in time, there were no other annual firearms classes available for you to attend in that year. Now, the difference with Constable Martian is his base certification has been in place through those 3 years as well. He did not have a lapse in his base certification.
Okay, understood.
Any other public comment or discussion? I'm going to ask the board for a motion, if they agree to this, to approve this firearms exception for Constable Tom Martian.
Berletic, I make a motion to allow it.
John Bruno, second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Berletic.
Bivens, aye.
Westover, aye.
Pite's aye.
Hearing no nays or abstentions, the motion is approved. we'll go ahead and move forward to the first discussion item, which we do not have any. Are there any discussion items that the board would like to bring forth during the meeting?
Westover does.
Yep, go ahead, Craig.
Okay, so I want to refer back a little bit on the fiscal side of things, but I didn't, during the report, I have no problem with the report as it's presented. But I guess my question is, page 9, we're looking at real estate building rental, commitment detail, $38,614.08. We've been effectively locked out of our buildings since March. What I'm wondering is, will the landlord consider forgiving the rent since we haven't had access to the facility? And it kind of ties in with, we approved our meetings for next year totally online. As I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sherry or John, have we been totally working remote and not really have a need, for that building? And if we're going forward with remote entirely next year, do we really, looking at $38,614.08, can we get some sort of a break if we need a conference room for whatever reason down the road? But at this point, with the financial, restraints that we have with the program, is this a cost that we really need to continue to bear? And I'm just throwing that out there as a discussion item for the board.
Hey, Craig, this is John Fowl. And what I would start out with is I understand your point. Staff has basically been working remotely. We have gone into the building occasionally. For example, that's the only place we can access clean. So if we have to run a background check or we get a notification, we have to go into the building and, run them through clean the building. We can't do that remotely. And there are a couple other times that we've had to go into the building. For example, staff's going to have to be in there to print new ID cards and that stuff for next year. But as far as, this is part of the overall agency. I mean, the agency, leases the building, and I mean, that's to a higher level, and I don't know if anyone else from PCC can address that. We still have commitments to the building, I'm sure, as an agency, even given the current circumstances.
Well, you can understand my frustration. I mean, I'm paying money for rent to a building I can't get into, and if I'm going to continue to do remote stuff, I'm just, and I'm not saying a total wipeout, but I think they ought to help us out with a reduction in rent, due to the program. And if we're only occasionally going in there to do, like you said, printing cards and, whenever we have to access clean. And I guess we got a major on the line from PSP. Maybe he can make something available for staff to go up to, his location in order to get that done. But, I'm just looking at total dollars, for the program where we can make cuts. And this is one of them that, I looked at and thought maybe this is something we can get some help on.
Right. And as I said, I kind of defer that to, someone else within the agency. And I know, my supervisors are on the call, so that's an issue I can discuss with them. Again, I couldn't give you a commitment at this point. One of the other things too, Craig, I mean, because we didn't have training, we really reduced what we were doing on the contracts, because for a while there, the contractors really weren't doing anything for us. And there was a lot of things there that got reduced that I wouldn't say saved us money. It just kind of put it there till next year, a reduction. So, and the first meeting in 2021, we were planning on doing a comparison to show the board the impact of no training, quarter by quarter, what we normally spend versus what we did spend, in minor expenses. So.
Well, that's a consideration I wanted to throw out, at least for the board to think about, maybe have discussions at further meetings. But that was one of the items that I had. The second item has to do with, our current projections. So on page 11, 2021 projection, we're projecting revenue of $1,552,640. But the problem is we're already at a deficit, looks like, on our revenue collection of $229,000 and some change. And I'm looking at page 10. So 10 constable fee collections, To make up that deficit, the next 3 quarters, we're going to have at least 445,000 and change for each quarter to make that revenue projection. So I guess my question is this something we can revisit on the projection going forward to see, get more realistic as to where we're really going to be for dollars, because it is going to affect us going on out to 24, 25 if we're running a deficit off the projection we have right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Craig, and this is John again, and I agree with you. And probably going into next year, because right now there's revenues down because there's not a lot of court work. We don't know how much of that court work is going to just be delayed, and then as things kind of return to normal, is there going to be a big spike and then, as you said, an increase in revenues from the surcharge, or is it just going to kind of be the same? So we can look at revising the projections as we move into next year, because we're kind of always a quarter behind, to make sure we have accurate figures.
Yeah. And the third thing I want to throw out there is location of inventory. So as it stands right now, the inventory that we had, ammunition, laser shot equipment, and all the other things that we have, where is all those items currently located? Where are they physically at now?
So as the board knows, Penn State, Fayette, in February terminated their training delivery contract with us, and with COVID, it kind of became a moot point because all training got canceled. And so Sherry and I went out last week and we inventoried all the equipment that they had and ammunition, and we recovered all that. So we have all the ammunition and equipment, and we're also going to be going through that because everything we recovered, not everything is being used anymore, or it's outdated, so there will be some equipment that needs to be surplus. And of course, any money that's recouped through surplusing would go back into the training fund. So we did recover all that equipment from Penn State.
Okay, so where's it stored at now, John?
So right now we have it, we're in the midst of putting a new contractor on board. And because of the volume, I mean, we filled a 24-foot box truck, with equipment and ammunition. So we've moved it to the new vendor, and we're just finalizing some things with the contract, and we'll be announcing that as soon as we can.
Okay. At some point, will the board be able to get access to an itemized list of inventory, what we currently have in stock, as far as, especially on the ammunition side? I don't know if everybody else is going through the same thing we are up here in the West, but getting ammunition just to shoot has been a real challenge here for the last 6 months. So I'm curious specifically about ammunition going forward, if we're going to have enough to, are we going to surplus that ammunition, or are we going to, since we're doing the show and shoot thing, are we only going to need ammunition for the basic training program, and, are we going to adjust our inventory accordingly for that, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, and actually I was working on that yesterday because we recovered, excuse me, we recovered between 2 schools about 120,000 rounds of ammunition. And, we're going to look at what the average, basic training, next year we're planning on 2 basic trainings, 2 basic firearms. So we're going to look at our needs, but there was also a lot of ammunition we're not using anymore. 45 gap. The one school still had about 4,000 rounds of 357 SIG, which has really dropped off as far as, constables carrying, etc. So we would surplus some of that ammunition that we determine we don't need. Of course, we'll see what price we can get for it, but that is part of the plan. Okay.
Well, like I said, on that inventory list or itemized inventory, the reason I was curious about that, being an instructor for both Penn State and for IUP, I saw equipment throughout the years, and I'm just curious if that stuff made the transition, if you know what I'm saying. I just want to make sure.
I would think, Greg, every year the schools have to submit a itemized inventory and update it and staff tracks that because, when they purchase things, it's showing up on monthly invoices. If it's more than a certain dollar amount, it has to be pre-approved by staff because they have to give justification, if they got to replace a red man suit or whatever. And we can provide that in an updated inventory. Sherry and I, in fact, that's one of the things we're doing is kind of reconciling the inventory. And in December, we're going to go through it again and make a determination what needs to be surplus. So we could even provide that at the next meeting. That's not a problem. We have a running inventory. We just want to make sure it's accurate given the change we just went through.
Okay. All right. Well, that's what I have for discussion items, and I appreciate staff indulging me on these questions.
Yep, not a problem, Craig. Any other discussion items from the board or PCCD staff? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move on to the informational items. I'm going to ask Megan to provide a curriculum overview of the 2021 curriculum. Megan?
Good morning, everybody. If you would please refer to pages 18 and 19 in the meeting packet so you can follow along on course descriptions. The basic is staying the same for 2021, so there are no changes to that. I'm going to go through Con Ed and start with cultural diversity, which is a 4-hour online course that teaches cultural awareness and cultural communication and context to prevent communication failures and conflicts between constables and community members of different backgrounds. Next is effective communications, which is a 4-hour online course that provides an examination of verbal and nonverbal communication, effective listening, and information gathering techniques to aid constables in communications with community members. Ethics is a 4-hour online course that defines the origin of ethics, details what ethics are and are not, while also teaching constables to manage external stressors and neutralizations of unethical behaviors that could arise during their work. The following 2 courses I'm speaking about will be offered in the classroom in 2021. These classes are 4 hours in length and both are taught in the classroom. They're offered on the same day with one 4-hour class being presented in the morning and the remaining 4-hour class will be run in the afternoon. These courses were offered in 2020, but due to the small numbers that were able to take the classes, excuse me, we are going to be running them again in 2021. The first is Every Constable's Worst Nightmare, which recalls an incident where a constable performed an eviction pursuant to an order for possession that took an unexpected and unfortunate outcome that resulted in the death of a 12-year-old girl. This course examines the legal aspects of the incident, the need for having a pre-developed plan, the importance of training, and support mechanisms provided in the aftermath of the incident to manage personal and the psychological costs of the occurrence. The next is Judgmental Use of Force, which covers relevant federal case law on the use of force in tandem with presentation of pre-planning and the use of cover and concealment. This course makes use of a small arms simulator titled Laser Shot, which presents a series of vignettes to reinforce the use of force decision-making skills. And finally, the 4-hour annual firearms qualification this year is going to be extended to 5 hours to accommodate second weapons. The qualification will consist of a written test, administrative procedures, safety brief, and firing the constable qualification course of fire. A study guide will be provided to constables for preparation and a written test. And that's everything I have. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments for Megan on the curriculum overview?
Westover, I have a question.
Yeah, John Bruno.
Go ahead, Westover.
Okay, just a question. The classroom thing, are we at this point have some certainty that we're going to be able to do that with the COVID, or is that still up in the air?
I'm going to defer my answer to John.
Yeah, this is John Fowl. We're going to go ahead and plan as best we can. On the deputy sheriff's side, we have successfully gotten the basic training back up and running, in-person training. Granted, that's a little longer, et cetera, but we implemented a lot of COVID protocols, and they've been working very well. So we're going to go ahead and implement similar protocols, maybe smaller class sizes, et cetera. And it's easier to plan and start moving forward, and if we have to dial back or whatever, we can. But right now, we'd rather plan to try and execute an in-person training, and then take it as, see where we are as we move forward.
Okay, thanks, John. Appreciate it.
And Craig, if I could
John
also
Bruno
add
here.
to this. Go ahead, John. You go first.
No, go ahead. Add to what you need to add to.
Basically, what I was going to state is the individuals, there were 310 individuals that were able to complete this, the 8 hours in classroom for the Every Constable's Worst Nightmare and Judgmental Use of Force in 2020. So for 2021, we're going to try to figure out a way that we can give them the same credits for the course from last year so that they will not have to do the 8 hours again this year since they were able to attend last year.
Okay, makes sense.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, I've got a question on the 4-hour online cultural diversity segment that's going to be put on. That particular segment, who developed that?
Well, what we did, John, is we took the last time we presented it in Con Ed, and Sherry or Megan, correct me, I think it was 2012 or 2013.
Actually, it was longer than that. I want to say this one was, 2012. It was 2012.
Okay. And so what we did, John, is because back in February, Penn State FAD also dropped the curriculum development contract. And so we took subjects that staff could work on and updating until we could get a new curriculum developer, which that's Temple University now. And so we did work on it, and then Temple has worked with us in conjunction with us and updating that cultural diversity module.
Updating it.
Yes.
You say updating it?
Yes, making it more current. I mean, the last time we did it was 2012. You know, sometimes material things change in topics, so we want to make sure it's the most current it can be.
Okay, yeah, the reason I bring this up is although it's a very important cultural diversity, it's also a very hot item, very politically hot item here, and we just got to make sure all our I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So want to make sure it doesn't come across with any political agenda attached to it.
No, and I'll be quite frank with you, John, that, you know, in reviewing the material, it's really not. It's really, you know, what it says. It's an awareness of, you know, we all live in our bubbles and our lanes. So this is really, and 4 hours isn't a lot. You know, at the Deputy Sheriff Academy, they do, for cultural diversity, they have about a 4-hour module that they have to do online over 4 or 5 weeks. And then they have an 8-hour instructor-led discussion and exercise piece. And actually, that's one of the more popular courses. The deputies respond to it very well. So one of the people who was helping us write this material was one of the principal instructors for the Deputy Sheriff Academy in the cultural diversity. And I think it does a really good balance.
Okay. Balance is important. So I'm getting that. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Megan on curriculum for 2021? Okay, hearing none, I'm just going to move on to the other informational items. I did not provide a page specifically for the training schedule, so I just thought I would give a verbal update. We are still, as John stated, in the process of finalizing a contract with training delivery contractor for the Western region through the Department of General Services. Once that is completed, we will get notification out to the board and also the constable population on that change. And as John stated, Temple University is the newly contracted curriculum developer for both the constables program and the sheriff's and deputy sheriff's program. Temple is also providing the host, perform basically as the host for the online training delivery as well. And then they will continue to provide training development or training delivery for the eastern region of the state. We will have new regions for the 2021 training year. Basically what we did is we took the central region that we previously had and split that up between the northeast, southeast, northwest, and southwest. So, for example, whereas Cumberland and Adams County were previously in the south central region, they are now going to be part of the southwest region. Similar incident for Dauphin County and York County. They were originally in the South Central region. They are now going to be moving to the Southeast region. So there will be a lot of significant changes as far as training locations, both for, to alleviate any of the COVID protocols that we have to put in place for next year, because we're going to have to decrease the class sizes, increase the class size of where the training will be held. So we will have some training location changes as well, in addition, as I said, to the reduction in the number of the minimum numbers we can have within a class itself. Staff are still working on the regions in the SET system. I am waiting for IT to do some technical things that they need to do on the back end, and then I will be setting up the regions as Northeast, Southeast, Northwest, and Southwest for the 2021 training year. Also, in relation to that, I just wanted to update the board on the firearms certification extension that was approved at the August meeting. That is still being worked on in the SET system. Basically, what we're going to do is we're just going to extend the last firearm certification period that the constables have on their record, extending that date through December 31st of 2021. And again, we will get more information out to the constable population and the board once these changes have been made in the SET system. And we are still working on the training schedule. Our goal is, as John stated, to provide the 8-hour classroom, the 12-hour online, and then also basic trainings and basic firearms for next year as well. Are there any questions on the? Yeah, go ahead.
This is John Sal again, and one of the things I do want to mention is because of the drop of Penn State as a curriculum developer and trying to get a contract in place with Temple, staff worked during that gap when we didn't have a curriculum developer. Staff worked on materials, etc. And now we do have a contract with Temple. We're very crunched with the time frames, so the online training may not be available till probably mid to end of January, just because the amount of time we have and what they have to get done, and with the holidays as well. It's going to back us up a little bit, but we will let the training population know as we move forward.
And again, that may affect also the release of the 2021 training schedule as well. So normally we open up the enrollment, the first Monday after the new year, has been the practice over the last several years, but we may have to push that back as well. I'm just putting that out there. That has no decision has been made on that, but that may be a possibility as well. Hearing no other questions or comments, I'll go ahead and move on to the online training update. Tracy, are you available to provide the online update and the status of certifications?
Sure. Okay, good morning, everyone. The online training update. Now, these numbers are as of October 30th, 2020. So we have had 2.5 weeks, so some of these numbers have increased. The Keystone login migration status. We have had 1,064 successful constables, deputy constables migrate to the new Keystone login platform. That is to log into the SET system, and that is 90% of the training population. And that is out of the 1,181 active constables and deputy constables who have a valid term of office. As far as Canvas activation, again, that 1,181 is the total number of enrollments that have been sent to Canvas. We have had 791, or 67%, who have activated their Canvas account and have started the online training. Out of that, 551, or 47%, have actually successfully completed the online training. They've taken all 4 hours and have successfully passed the test for the course requirements, and that passing grade is 70%. Does anyone have any questions on the online training updates? Okay, hearing none, I will move to the...
Hold on, quick question.
Yes.
So we've gotten real numbers, Tracy, just about how many constables who have not yet completed the required online course, which is, am I correct, set to expire on December 4th.
The training, go ahead.
This is Go ahead. And, staff, we've been talking about this, for the board to know that we're not sure, is this a lot of people waiting to the last minute? We've heard some very minor stories or emails or comments from constables or counties that there are guys who, a combination of between COVID and online, that they decided to retire. They're not going to renew their certification, but those are very small. We don't know what the real number is. So of the guys who have completed the training and the remaining, 450 or a little more, we're not sure how many of these constables we'll see again in the new year for training. We're tracking everybody who has contacted staff. Staff has spent the last several weeks on the phone getting guys, getting their accounts activated if they haven't, getting them, helping them with the training online. The Temple Help Desk has taken a lot of calls. So I think the guys who are interested in keeping their certification, for the most part, have done their part. It's a matter of us kind of waiting to see how many of these guys resign, don't follow through or whatever.
And I can add to that, this is Sherry, that staff and I have talked to multiple constables, and there are some constables who are basically saying, when my term expires December 31st of 2021, I'm done. So I'm not taking the training this year. And I'm assuming that they will not take the training next year either. Just as an update, as of yesterday to that number, that have completed, we are at about 711. So we're actually up a little bit more to about 60% that have completed it. But still, we're over, there's over 400, 500 that still haven't done anything in relation to that. And as like John said, it may just be that they're going to hang their hats up and not, pursue the constable work anymore. But we have been inundated for the past couple of weeks, and I'm sure the next 2 weeks are going to be just as bad with the individuals who are waiting to the last minute to complete the online training. But they have until 11:59 p.m. on Friday, December 4th to complete.
Did we give any thought to maybe extending that a week out to December 11th? Just
nope.
Throwing that out just as a question. Okay.
Good enough. I mean, it interferes then. Yeah, it interferes then with our end of year jobs that we have to complete, and also for the ID cards, because we're already getting calls. When am I getting my 2021 ID card? And mid-December we'll be mailing them out then.
Right. And okay. Yeah, 40% is 40% is rather high.
It is, and staff started sending out emails kind of, I want to say in September, and reminding people, and now we've closed that gap on how often those email reminders go out. In fact, I know Sherry identified, I think it was about 14 people, Sherry, that you had staff actually physically call, email to try and say, hey, do you need help getting your online account started, et cetera. So we're trying to do everything we can to remind the population this deadline is coming. And that deadline has been public since we opened the online training in January.
Yeah. And that, John, that was for individuals who completed the online training but have never done their code of conduct, which was instituted on January 1st of 2020. So they've had, 11 months to get their code of conduct into us, and they still haven't done that.
Okay.
But they've completed the online training. So, and, we're advising them that we're not going to be able to certify you, even though you completed the online training, because we need your updated code of conduct signed off on. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, well, that's all I have.
Actually, this is Terry from York.
Okay, hold on just a second. We're going to get to public voice. So
This was about this topic.
Okay, well, public voice, you can speak that. So let me get that started, and then we'll bring you on. So at this point, we're going to open up the floor to public voice session. I ask that each person who requested to comment prior to the meeting, we will announce those individuals first. I believe Tracy only heard back from 2 individuals. If you do have comments, we do ask that you keep it to 2 minutes or less. If you have no public comment or questions, you could just indicate that. Tracy, will you go ahead and open up with the 2 individuals that you had that had requested to speak at the board meeting?
Yes, again, this is Tracy Beaver with PCCD staff. The first constable who responded back to me was Constable Terry White out of York County. Terry, go ahead.
So this is Terry White, York County. I have a couple questions for the board and a couple comments. So I filed a right to know request about LEOSA and constables and got some very disturbing emails back from PCCD. And I just want to read a couple of them so the board is aware. This is from Sherry Leffler on December 8th, 2016, regarding a question on whether or not PA constables are covered under LEOSA. She says, no, they would not be covered under LEOSA. They try to hang their hats on the New York versus Rodriguez case, which addresses concealed carry provisions under LEOSA, but this is a New York case and not PA, so it doesn't apply. From Mr. Fowl, we don't talk about it. We don't sign off on it. Again, it comes down to their employing agency. They need to read the fine print regarding constables. From an email dated January 24th, 2018 from Sherry Leffler. Section 926C is very specific in the requirements of law enforcement officers by stating that the law enforcement has to have the authority to engage in supervision, prevention, detection, investigation, prosecution, and or has statute powers of arrest or authority to apprehend it. PCCD and the board are training and certifying constables and deputies constables to perform judicial duties only. We are not training and certified to provide authority to engage in supervision, prevention, detection, or prosecution, or having statutory arrest powers in PA. So I find all that very, very troubling. There's also a comment in here that Sherry was going to provide an email update during the bulletin about what her opinion is, or PCCD's opinion is, or CBT is about this in one of the training bulletins. I never saw anything like that come out. So my questions to the board are basically 4. Does PCCD and the board adopt this official position that certified constables, firearm certified constables, are not covered under LEOSA? Does the board agree with Sherry's comments that we are not law enforcement officers in PA? In reference to what was talked about today, does PCCD think that the 3 courses, the online courses that we're going to cover in 2021, are the most relevant courses that we can have for constables? And a suggestion, instead of just sending out the blanket emails to all constables about the deadline, how about sending out emails to the constables and exactly what they are missing? Because there's really no way for the constables to tell that their code of conduct or the online course may not have gotten to you. So those are my 4 comments.
Okay, first, Terry, I could comment on your last statement regarding letting constables know what they're missing. They do have access to the Constable Certification and Education and Training System, which is the CET system. That does indicate when they try to log in, or when they do log in, they can go to their constable profile. They can see that the code of conduct is missing. Honestly, myself and my staff do not have the time to babysit 1,181 constables and deputy constables. We try to do the best that we can in informing the constables of what they are responsible to do. Again, I don't have the time that I can go in and, tell every individual constable what they need to do as far as the certification. It's very clear in the regulation that they have to complete the, whatever the standard is that the board has set for that year for the continuing education or the firearms courses. So I don't know how else to address that, but my staff and I we do not have the capabilities to contact each individual constable individually to tell them what they're missing. That is their responsibility to do that.
And I will address my email regarding LEOSA. Since LEOSA was passed, constables constantly send us a form and ask us to sign off to employing agency, because the LEOSA Act states that your last employing agency has to issue you basically some kind of ID or documentation that says you left in good standing, you met the certification requirements, etc. BCCE and the board, we are not an employing agency of constables. We are the training. The board is responsible for training and certification. And I know there is varying opinions on INRI Act 147, but INRI Act 147 was the Supreme Court case that labeled constables independent contractors. That's not my opinion. That's the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So constables contacting us to sign off on their LEOSA paperwork, we're not your employing agency. We're not going to sign off on that.
And you're taking no position on who our employing agency is, correct?
That's not my place or the board's place to determine. That's between the legislature and the courts.
This is Deborah Sandiford to sort of round out the discussion and hopefully put an end to it. And an individual certainly has the right, Mr. White, as you know well, to make a right-to-know law request to the agency. And what you obtain in terms of emails from staff, just because staff express an opinion on this statute or any other statute does not mean that the board has taken an official position. And in fact, it appears to me that the board does not have an official position here, because it doesn't have anything to do with the constable's education and training.
I would just submit that this would be a very good topic versus some of the topics that we might cover next year in Con Ed. Instead of, doing the ethics or doing, I don't have all my notes, effective communication, maybe putting out something about, what are our duties, instead of, I don't know, I'm just very upset with what I got, and the position, I would encourage the constables on the board to actually discuss it among the board members and see if we can get any movement.
Terry, this constable, I'd like to speak on this, if you don't mind for a minute, especially on LEOSA, okay? So on the LEOSA Act, I've had discussions with firearms instructors that are actually the ones that sign off, on the LEOSA Act. And that was a question I asked them about the employing agency. And I'll tell you that I've had a few instructors out here that their opinion on constables is that because you are a self-employed contractor, you're truly your own employing agency, that we don't have an employing agency. Because we're a contractor, we're our own business, per se, per constable, that the LEOSA Act, the way they interpret it as an instructor that signs off is, I need something from your employing agency. If you're telling me you're your employing agency, Craig, you need to provide me with a resume and your work history of what you've done. And off of that, that is my backing to certify you and give you LEOSA, that I have something documented. So I think the whole LEOSA Act, where the switch has to be made in your mind is PCCD as a training agency, and that's what the enabling legislation from the General Assembly said was, we train constables to do judicial work. So anything else beyond that, whether it's work in the election polls or any other type of work that constables do, if it's not under that judicial work guideline, PCCD really has no ability as an agency to comment or to certify or do anything else beyond judicial work. And that's where I think the constables have a hard time making that determination, or that you have to put this into a category of judicial work, which is what PCCD does, and then everything else in the world out there the constables are doing, which is, as a self-employing agency, they're out doing that work. Does it make sense to you?
It does, except for one part of the enabling statute that says PCCD and or the board will sign off for constables with firearms for any constable duties.
Okay. Well, and that's something we can have then our legal take a look at. If that's a specific part of the legislation that's hanging you up, well, I'll request that as a board member. I'll request a determination on what the intent of the General Assembly was on that piece of it, because I understand what you're hanging your hat on, but I also have to agree with anybody that says, well, we're looking at court cases in other states, or we're looking at, other things. But unfortunately, PCCD is the wrong organization to beat up on, because that's not in their bailiwick. Their job is to provide judicial training to constables, but I understand where you're coming up with that on enabling legislation. So, I have no problem asking legal to give me an opinion on what the General Assembly's intent was when they incorporated it in that language.
I can do something more elaborate.
Let me just say this, Craig. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. Go ahead.
No, please, go ahead.
How are you anyway?
I'm fine. How are you?
Wonderful. It's good to hear your voice. But LEOSA being a federal act, I do believe President Bush put that into play. I guess the intent behind that was the more law-abiding gun owners out in the citizenry, aka the police, the safer retired police, the safer the citizenry will be. But I'm thinking, and I agree with what you said, both John and Craig. PCCD isn't the place, isn't the agency. I think that what I understand is we are more attached to the executive, to the governor. So if anything would have to, like I said, our connection would be to the executive office, and perhaps the long shot would be if the governor would sign off on such a thing, then you would probably more than likely get your LEOSA certification either through the state police or the Municipal Police Officers Training and Education Act. But that's our closest connection to any agency, Commonwealth agency, would be the governor's office himself. My thought.
I was just going to add that, semantics are tough, and to pull out a phrase, any constable duties, out of context, that could look like one thing, but in the context of the statute, it simply has to do with the duties that are addressed in the statute. And those are the duties, as Craig Westover put out, about the judicial duties. It doesn't mean that when, as an independent contractor, a constable is hired to enforce the rules of a supermarket, for example, who's got their senior hour from 6 to 7 a.m. during this COVID, that doesn't automatically become a constable duty that fits under the statute. It just doesn't. I mean, if I could write something elaborate, if this is in fact something that the chair is interested in, but I think the bottom line is it is clear what the duties referenced in the act are about, and they are not any and everything that a constable could contract to do in the Commonwealth.
Okay, any other discussion on this?
No, it's just an ongoing issue. It's a good issue. It's just what the intent of the LEOSA Act was and who it should include. And, you know, as time goes on, somebody's going to have to get a real solid opinion from someplace on this going down the path. So without, you know, belaboring this any longer,
So is the board requesting something of our chief counsel?
Can I, John,
what do you think?
Can I interject something here?
Sure, go ahead, Judge.
Absolutely.
I think it's not incumbent on my opinion, it is not incumbent on the PCCD or the board to address this. The PCCD and the board are doing what they're required to do by statute, i.e. the training. It's incumbent on the constables collectively throughout the Commonwealth, get all their organizations together throughout the Commonwealth, go to Congress, because LEOSA is a federal mandated act. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. You're going to have to go to the people that created the thing and have them clean it up. And it's not our responsibility to do that or even weigh in on this. I mean, I understand what the constable's saying, and to a degree I agree with them. But there's all kind of case law that we've seen over the years that we presented in training, and constables find themselves, they put themselves sometimes, as we all do, in situations they shouldn't, and then you have case law created. And I understand the frustration, believe me, but it's not I don't think it's our position or responsibility to do anything about this other than to deliver the training the way we've been delivering it.
Right, I agree with that, and I do understand. But you're right. That's the way to go. There's no question about it. It is collectively for the associations to get together and lobby somewhere. Lobby your congressman. But it does. It's interesting because it does fall under training and education. So, and I think we've given that direction through training and education. Perhaps we can write something up, you know what I mean, and make it, historical to say, listen, we've looked at this, and this is what needs to be done. This is not our wheelhouse here. Just so we give the constables, some sort of direction, so we're not revisiting the LEOSA question again next year or the year after.
I would agree, John. If we could get something in writing, from the agency, I don't know if that would come from Deborah or who that would come from, but then that would also assist staff in making those determinations because, again, I mean, when I was asked to sign off as an employing agency for a LEOSA application, I'm not doing that because I'm not their employing agency because of Act 147.
That's correct, and we're not employing agency.
Sherry, if I could make a comment, this is Laird Cole from Mercer County.
Sure, go ahead.
I think the main concern, just from monitoring the constable websites and stuff, and this may not affect me because I'm possibly leaving next year for a new job, and I already have LEOSA from municipal police training, but I think the main concern is the answers that are given from the employees in Harrisburg that make it seem as if they're making a definitive position that they aren't covered by LEOSA. I think a blanket correct answer would be, I can't answer that. We are the training agency. They are the constable, and what the law reads, we're not attorneys. We can't interpret it. All we can do is, all our position is we train them. He is certified. You're going to have to contact someone else for the information if they're covered by LEOSA, because I don't feel that based on just what the other constable read, that's not the way it came across. And I think that's just the concern, is how the answer is coming across, the interpretation, where I don't think you were trying to interpret it that way. I agree that you are not an employing agency, but just the statement, we are not an employing agency, we're a training agency. All I can say is we trained him as a constable, period. That's my end of comment.
Go ahead.
Sam Vinegar has a...
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move past this subject now. Tracy, do you have another individual that had contacted you that wanted to make comment to the board?
Yes, the second constable is Constable David McCann out of Delaware County.
Constable McCann, are you on the line? And do you wish to make comments to the board?
Good morning. Yes, I am. I'll try to make this brief. I do want to say, even though you closed the topic that was just discussed, I do think Constable White brought up some significant issues there, especially as it relates to the ID cards and the training being regulated, but I understand PCCD to it. I certainly look forward to some further discussions on that. The two quick comments I have, one, I believe it was the judge that brought up the stipend, and I appreciate him tabling that because the figures weren't available, and revisiting that and looking at your training requirements for this upcoming year. You have a 25-hour training requirement between the in-service and the firearms. None of those hours are being paid. Constables aren't being paid for those hours. So in addition to the travel expenses that you mentioned and the ammunition expenses that constables will also have to undertake provide their own ammunition, their own firearms for newer constables, their own equipment, we're not being paid any of that time or reimbursement. And I understand your situation where you say the funds are low, but I would think even if some sort of agreed upon minimum amount of compensation could be offered to the constables that attend that training, it would certainly, I think, help a lot of people with the financial burdens that we encounter from all that training requirements and equipment requirements not being compensated at all. So again, I appreciate the judge bringing that up and tabling it, and I look forward to what comes out of that. And the last point that I wanted to talk to, I looked in the notes from your previous meeting, and it was brought up once or twice by other constables about being able to use police department ranges or police instructors to satisfy the requirements of the constable's firearms, requalification every year. And I saw the remarks in there that, it's not, that the constable board sets the agenda. And I saw the shots that were taken at the MOPEC, where half of the MOPEC officers failed the constable course 11 years ago or whatever. But I'm one of those people, and I know I'm not alone in the comments, that I'm a certified constable as well as a MOPEC certified police officer. And I can just say from my own experience, when I came on as a constable to fill an unexpired term, I was mandated to attend your 40-hour basic course. And quite frankly, I had constables in this area, with condescending remarks like, oh, we found the cops can't shoot. And I get it. I know the history between MOPEC and PCCD. I know it's a strained relationship at best. And don't get me wrong, I like training, and the instructors were great that did the firearms training. But for all those remarks, I scored 100 on the written test and a 98 on the shooting proficiency. For someone like myself to have been mandated to attend the 40-hour basic course, I didn't necessarily, think that was the right, it was a necessity. But it is what it is. But the reason why I'm bringing it up now, especially with the COVID concerns and these issues that we have with availability, I think that we should revisit being able to utilize. A lot of constables have great relationships with police departments or sheriff's departments in their area, and they have certified instructors. Just at this meeting today, the board unanimously appointed the firearms instructor for Temple. And if you looked at his bio that you read, it clearly said he was a MOPEC certified instructor. And now you're bringing him into the PCCD fold. These are the types of people that would be doing the qualifications. And for someone like myself, my department mandates that I shoot twice a year. I have an instructor there. If I could bring a sheet from PCCD that says, hey, look, I have to shoot this course and qualify and you to sign off, I think that would be a way to help offset some of these COVID difficulties you have with scheduling, and it would make the constables incur less expense for traveling or arranging to meet up when PCCD sets these courses, these unfunded mandates. It could be a situation where we could continue our good relationship with the police and sheriff's departments and be able to have the training provided by those certified instructors. I appreciate the opportunity to talk. Thank you very much.
John Bruno here. Hard to argue with that presentation.
Okay, we'll move on with any other discussion or response to that. Public voice comments? Okay, are there any other individuals that you have on your list, Tracy, or those were the only two that contacted you?
Those were the only two that contacted me to speak during public voice.
Okay, so I will go ahead and I will open up the floor to anyone that would like to make comment to the board. Please, again, keep your comments to 2 minutes or less and just state your name and the county in which you are elected or appointed. Is there any other public voice?
Constable Ron Quinn from Center County.
Okay, go ahead, Ron.
Back in the spring meeting, I brought up this issue about the constable's classification as law enforcement officers, and I also sent an email to you back to Tracy and Sherry back on 31st of July in a letter in response to John Fowles' comments and everything at that meeting, and I haven't heard anything back yet. And in that letter, I did note cited a case law, In Re Act 147-1990 from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which John mentioned earlier and stuff. It does also mention us as law enforcement as well as being independent contractors as well. In the Commonwealth versus Allen Pennsylvania court case, it's mentioned there. In the Galouz versus Miller in the federal court, it's mentioned there. Under state statutes, the actual laws, under PA Code 302, Section 29.10-1, under PA Code 311, Section 41.13-1303, under PA Code 37, Section 21.1, under PA Code 234, Rules 103 and Rules 431 also stipulate that constables are law enforcement officers. So if the state law is basically stating that constables are law enforcement officers, even though conceding to the legal counsel's remarks and stuff that we're peace officers, but we're much more than that because we have peacekeeping duties. We are still classified as law enforcement officers, and this is very important due to the fact that the definition by state agencies and stuff goes to affecting our insurance rates and how we're classified by insurance companies, as well as this LEOSA thing. But it also affects the scope and direction of how our training is conducted. If we're not classified as law enforcement officers in the eyes of our trainers, then basically our training is for the particular duties that we do. Now, I'm not saying we should go expand beyond the judicial training, but can we at least agree, all of us agree, that according to the laws and the case laws, that constables are law enforcement officers?
Amen.
Deborah Sandifer again. I would love to read the statutes and the case law that you brought out, because the board is not in a position to agree with those terms at all, because it is possible that the cases you referenced have to do with a specific set of circumstances and not, in fact, have to do with defining a constable as a law enforcement officer for the purposes of training. Could you?
Well, I think if you go back
could you
and read the
forward those
letter
sites?
that I sent to Sherry and Tracy and stuff, which I would have hoped would have been shared with the other board members and everything, I think you'll see that. But of course, this is also being recorded as well, so you can go back and reflect on the actual cases and the statutes that I just read off there and stuff. So you do have the information available there.
Yes, we do have the information available, but to be more efficient, to be quicker, would you have any objection to sending that letter again to staff? Including
I can do that. Where
sites,
do you want it sent to?
the same place you sent it to before. I think you said you sent it to Sherry. And if
Sherry
it
and
includes,
Tracy, yes.
if it includes the citations that you mentioned, I'd be glad to take a look at it for you. I don't think you want us to wait until the minutes are done and we've gone back and listened to the recording. This would be a lot more efficient.
I will get that out to you today or tomorrow then.
Thank
Deborah,
you.
if I could just add here too, I do have that email and I can forward that on to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bud Pikes. Constable Pikes, Allegheny County.
Go ahead, Bud.
Hey, could you forward that information to also, or his request or whatever it was, to the board members also so we can look it over?
Sure, I can do that. It was sent initially to Tracy and I on July 31st. It stated CETB. I forwarded it on to John probably a couple of days after that, and we had a little discussion on it, and that was all that was done with it. So I will forward that on to the board as well.
That way it would give us a chance to look at it. Okay, thank you. And thank the gentleman on the other end.
You're welcome.
Sam Vinegar from Montgomery County.
Go ahead, Sam.
Thanks, Sherry. Thank you, board. I'm an appointed deputy constable. I also instruct the academic portions for Temple University. An appointed deputy. I'm certified. I really get to the point where the definition of a Pennsylvania state constable or deputy constable, right? And what that is, I stood up in front of a judge. I was sworn into the position. I have responsibilities of, keeping the peace. If I see it, I understand that I don't, I'm my own agency, so that makes it difficult for PSP to, kind of recognize that, where's the oversight for constables. And I understand that you're the training, mechanism for us. And you would supply the data, right, of our training and certification to, whoever's going to issue the LEOSA. And that's all I'm going to say for that. But you have to be able to tell us, because your responsibility to us as your students, right, is who are we in your eyes? Okay? And statutorily, we're police officers, we're sworn law enforcement in Pennsylvania with arrest powers in the entire state. So this should be black and white. And I would probably demand your legal department to put out a statement and then coordinate who do you report to? Do you report to the governor's office? And as do we? Let's get some coordination where you can help us through all of this bureaucracy, okay, to get this straightened out. We're not asking you to be our agency. We're asking for a little help, and we're asking you to recognize exactly who a Pennsylvania constable or deputy constable is. Thank you.
This is Constable Cole. I'd like to back up a little bit what the deputy just said. I'm also an instructor, formerly with Penn State. I don't know what my status is now. And as I said, I'm probably leaving because I got a job with Homeland Security and I start next year, as long as COVID doesn't interfere. But I think the main concern with with what he's trying to say is every outside agency, be it PSP, the feds, whatever, when it goes for training, don't or contact some agencies like the training board and say, are these law enforcement or these police, and they get kind of a gray area, and then they're not accepted into different training programs or training that could be given for free. And then part of the major complaint about constables is they're never trained. So, or they don't have enough training. So when we try to take a course from PSP, which any municipal officer could take, constables can't get in. And one of the reasons is given is, well, you guys aren't an agency, you guys aren't trained law enforcement. Again, it's a catch-22, and I think that's the concern of a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Laird. Are there any other constables on the line that would like to make comment to the board?
Yeah, Greg Smith, Franklin County.
Yep.
Thank you. And thank you all for putting in the time to do this. I just wanted to address the stipend piece. I understand that at this point, any new constables coming in have to pay the complete cost for basic and for basic firearms. I expect, as you've already mentioned, with the turnover coming up, that we're going to have substantial vacancies and new constables coming in 2022. So it's much appreciated to see that the fund is not going to be depleted, due to that. I think with that influx, it could potentially have broken the training fund completely. But I think that it would be wise not to pay any stipends until probably we get through that 2022 influx. So that's just my input. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Greg. Any other constables on the line that would like to make comment to the board?
Dave Coral.
Okay, you'll have to state one at a time and state your name and county, please.
Dave Coral, Venango County.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be a part of the meeting today. That's all I've got to say.
Well, thank you, and we appreciate you joining in with us today.
Gary Winfrey, York County.
Go ahead, Gary.
Thanks, Sherry. Thank you for the board here being part of the meeting today. The question I have goes back to one of the first constables up in Allegheny County that had a situation with their training. I had a lapse in my training. Last training year, I've been a constable since 2004. 2016, I had a couple catastrophic things happen with my father. I had to take care of, had a brain tumor. I ended up passing away in 2018. I since wanted to start back with constable again. Went back and forth with emails with Sherry. She's been very good with getting back to me and trying to get this worked out. I filled out a grievance, and the grievance basically was denied about my firearms needed to be done this year, or I would have to go back to basic firearms class starting in 2021. My only issue with getting certified in my advanced training for firearms this year was that because of COVID, all the classes were either over full or they were canceled. So all I'm doing is asking the board for consideration that in 2021, I will be booked into the very first class that opens up. I don't care where it's at in the state. I'll drive to it, and you guys don't have to pay me anything to go back and forth. My point is that I'm just asking that because of the catastrophic things that I've gone through the last few years, I had to step down from my constable. I want to become a full-time constable. I don't want to just use the training just to sit down. I'm a constable in York County, and I want to be able to, number one, either be added to the advanced class for next year for firearms, if I could. If not, if it feel that the board sees that I must have to take basic firearms again, which I don't feel is necessary, I would ask that they waive the cost of the basic firearms.
Hi, Gary. I could just respond a little bit to your grievance. One of the major issues was that your base certification had expired, and unfortunately, we had to get you into the online training to get that base certification up. I can provide the board with the information both from your grievance that you filed and the response back to you. And again, because of the lapse in the certification was more than 3 years, that's why we were going to require you to go back to the basic firearms. Any input from the board on this? Would the board like to see the grievance that was filed and as well as the response back to Mr. Winfrey to accommodate his request that he just made of the board?
Yes, please send it to all of us, Sherry, if you'd be so kind.
Yep, I could do that.
Thank you very much, Sherry. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, Gary. Are there any other constables on the line that would like to speak to the board?
Antoine Malloy, Allegheny County.
Okay, go ahead.
Are you talking to Bud or to me, Sherry?
Yeah.
I'd like to congratulate Temple University and the PCCD staff for an excellent job on putting together the ConEd program. It was extremely educational, very to the point, and to myself, it was very enjoyable going through it. Thanks again, and you did a very, very good job. That's it.
Thank you, Bud. We appreciate the feedback.
Thank you.
Any other
Antoine
comments from the public?
Antoine Malloy, Allegheny County.
Go ahead, Antoine.
Good morning, Sherry. Good morning to the board. Special hello to the Honorable Judge Tom Berletic. Thank you for giving me his time. I've been in your program for 25 years. Just a couple questions. Might be off topic from some of the stuff the other guys are asking. I thought this one was very informative, and there's been a lot of good subjects put forth. My question is, for new constables who have been in the program for a year or less, do they have to go through the updates online? And second question is, the surplus equipment that at some point you guys will look at liquidating, will it be available for purchase from the constable associations? That's all I have.
Well, I'll agree with the equipment, Anton. We have to surplus it through Department of General Services. So we identify equipment, and what it is, and et cetera, and basically turn it over to them, and they go through the surplus sale. That's how all state agencies dispose of any surplus equipment.
Okay.
And then, Antoine, could you repeat the first part of that question regarding the ConEd?
Yes, like new constables that just came into the program this year or last year, do they have to do the 4-hour updates online? For instance, I know someone who just came into the program this year. Do they have to do the 4-hour updates for next year, or are they automatically updated?
No, they would not. If someone had attended the basic training this year and became certified, they would be certified for 2020 and 2021. So now they will need to go to the ConEd in 2021 to maintain their certification for 2022.
Okay, and how were they made aware of that in the basic training class, or was that kind of just left in the air? Because I know two people who weren't really sure.
Yeah, that I don't know if it was discussed, but it is the normal practice that when they do attend the basic training class, they do not have to attend the ConEd that same year.
Okay. Also, I'd like to request a copy of the packet that you guys worked from today.
Yeah, it is available on the constable section of the PCCD website.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
And if you can't find it there, just shoot me an email and I'll send it out to you then.
Okay. Thanks, Sherry.
You're welcome.
Sherry, I have one question for Antoine. Antoine, are you there?
I'm here, Judge.
First of all, what I'd like to know, and I'm sure a lot of people are curious as to what you have on. And second of all, will you be appearing in the green room at the Sheraton this evening?
I like it. Thanks, Judge. I'm just in my regular casual clothes today. No shirt and tie. Sorry.
Okay.
And Antoine.
Good hearing from you.
Antoine,
Yes,
I want
bud.
them shoes. I want them shoes.
You want the blue ones?
You always got the right shoe
I'm
on.
gonna send you the blue ones. I'm gonna send you the blue ones, but
I'll wear them.
all right.
Okay,
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Okay, is there any other constables on the line that wish to address the board?
Constable Quinn from Center County again.
Okay, go
Just
ahead,
a quick
Ron.
question. Basically, a lot of times, and I don't think I'm alone here and stuff like that, I like to try to reach out and be able to know who qualified constables are, before I do like ride-alongs or any backups and things like that. And when I go into sets, of course, the only ones that show up are the ones that basically opt out of sharing of contact information and everything. What I'm not asking for, though, is if they opt out from sharing contact information, can they at least still be listed on sets to let us know if they're firearms and court work certified and stuff with you guys, so that it can open up the opportunities for more constables? Because if they don't share their contact information, I'm a constable like all these other guys. I can find them, but I just need to know if they're certified or not. And it would help out a lot if all the certified constables were listed on the sets. Is there any way to be able to accomplish that?
Yeah, Ron, that is.
You can find that on the public constable finder. It tells whether they're firearm certified. You can search by county, etc.
Is that through a PCCD website, or is that?
Yes, that's on our public-facing website.
Yeah, there's a link there to the Constable Finder, Ron, on the right-hand side of the Constable section of the PCCD website.
And that's different from the sets, correct?
That is correct. That is the public-facing query.
I'll look for that then. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions or comments from the public?
Kenton Gilstrap, Butler County.
Okay, go ahead.
Newly elected last November, so about a year. But my questions revolve around the stuff that Megan, Sherry, and Tracy already covered part of. I think I heard that the basic training schedule for 2021 is still not solidified. My concern is this. I was trying to get into the course last year that had started but was then canceled. So my concern is, will the people that were in that course take precedent? I'm sure that they will when you create a new course or schedule for 2021. So if that's the case, am I going to have to wait another year because that course will automatically be filled by the people that were locked out due to COVID?
This is John Fowle. Well, I'll say to you, all our training is first come, first serve. Although staff, they have, a lot of the new people who have contacted the agency, staff's aware of who has expressed interest in training, so that when the training schedule is released, oftentimes staff will also reach out and say, hey, the basic schedule's out there if you want to register, because year to year, people's plans change, et cetera. So we don't automatically just roll people into a course. It's still first come, first serve.
And another caveat to this would also be that we do require payment prior to enrollment into the class. So we would require the payment of $1,125 before you would be enrolled into the class for the basic training.
That's nice. Okay, that's nice to know. And have you guys given any consideration for having more than one basic course for 2021 due to the slowdown?
Yes, our plan for 2021 is we are going to start the year off with a basic training in the eastern part of the state, followed by a basic firearms approximately 5 to 6 weeks after the end of the basic training. And then we will also be planning something in the west. But unfortunately, with not having a contract in place for the western region yet, it's been kind of tough to schedule stuff yet. So hopefully, but our plan is to have 2 basic trainings in 2021.
Excellent. Thank you very much. My first meeting, and I learned a lot. Thank you, people.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Okay, one last call for any other public voice for the board to address the board. Okay, hearing none. Are there any comments from any of the contractors, Temple University? Do you have any comments that you would like to address the board on?
No, but thank you for asking, Sherry.
Sure. Has there been anyone that has joined the meeting that was not previously noted? I see that we do have a lot of call-ins today that we weren't aware of. If you could just state your name and county if you haven't made public comment to the board themselves, so that we can account for the attendance on our meeting notes, on the meeting minutes.
Dee Biter, Temple University.
Any others on the call that would like to be recognized in the meeting minutes?
Todd Rich, Montgomery County.
Tony Luongo, Temple University.
Any others? Okay, at this point, I'm going to ask the board I'm going to request a motion to adjourn the meeting. Can I hear a
I make
motion?
that motion, John Bruno. Motion to adjourn the meeting.
A second?
I make a second, Sherry. This is athletic, but I would ask: is it possible that I'd be able to talk to you and John just for a minute after the meeting?
Sure, we can hang on the call then.
Okay.
And can I get everyone's all in favor of that? Please say aye.
Aye.
Berletic, aye.
Bivens, aye. Bruno, aye.
Any nays or abstentions from the motion to adjourn? Hearing none, the motion is approved, and we are going to adjourn the November 19th, 2020 meeting. We will provide information on the February 11th, 2021 board meeting closer to the date of the board meeting. And everyone have a good day. We will talk to you in February.
Thank you. Have a nice Thanksgiving. Merry Christmas.
Same to you. Thank you.
All that.